We talk about the spoils of war. Now, in this case, one of those key spoils of war was actually the brain power of the Nazi scientists. All these brilliant Nazi scientists, of course, were hugely attractive, both to the US government, the British government, and indeed the Soviet Union.
The Nazis aren't only known for their rebellion. From being the masterminds behind one of everyone's favorite drinks, and basically setting the standard for most modern-day military tanks, to having a huge influence on the Olympics, Nazis have invented more things than you can imagine. What else did they create? Well, here are 20 things that Nazis invented and you didn't know about. Night vision.
And naturally, a night vision scope may seem like a good idea. Here's why it's a terrible idea.
The Nazis developed special goggles called the vampire device that allowed soldiers to see in the dark, which was a major breakthrough in night vision technology. The vampire device used a combination of infrared light and special optics to amplify any available light, making it possible for soldiers to navigate and aim their weapons in complete darkness. This gave the Nazis a huge advantage on the battlefield, especially during nighttime operations. The vampire device was a relatively simple but effective innovation that paved the way for modern night vision technology, which is still used by military forces and others today. This list is only getting started, and the next invention is not only famous, but it is also consumable. Fanta. You see, during World War II, the Nazis had trouble getting the ingredients needed to make Coca-Cola, which was a popular drink at the time. To solve this problem, a German company called Max Keith created a new soft drink using ingredients that were more readily available, such as apple fiber and beet sugar. The result was Fanta, a fruit-flavored soda that quickly became popular in Germany. Fanta was initially made with a mix of apple and grape flavors, and it was marketed as a refreshing alternative to traditional colas. After the war, Fanta was introduced to other countries, and it eventually became a global brand with a range of flavors.
After almost 50 years on supermarket shelves,
It quickly became a beloved drink around the world. Nazi television. The Nazis were the first to create a public television system, which allowed people to watch TV in their homes. They made a special device called the Einheitsfernsehempfänger, or E1, which was the first TV receiver. This meant that people could watch shows, news, and other programs on a screen in their living rooms. The Nazis were proud of this invention and saw it as a way to share information and entertainment with the public. They even broadcast special events, like the 1936 Olympics, to people's homes, which was a big deal at the time. This was a major milestone in the development of television, and it paved the way for the modern TV systems we use today. Landkreuzer P.1000 Ratte. The Nazis designed a massive tank called the Landkreuzer P.1000 Ratte, which was planned to be the biggest and most powerful tank in the world.
A Ratte tank had such a large diameter projectile that its destructive force would have been absolutely enormous.
This enormous vehicle was over 35 meters long and weighed more than 1,000 tons, making it as heavy as a large building. The Rat was designed to be almost invincible, with thick armor plating and powerful guns that could destroy entire cities. It was also supposed to be able to cross rivers and crush enemy defenses with ease. Pervitin. Pervitin, an early form of methamphetamine, was a stimulant widely used by Nazi soldiers during World War II to enhance their physical capabilities and reduce fatigue, allowing them to fight for extended periods without rest. Developed in Germany in the 1930s, Pervitin was initially marketed as a medication to treat various ailments, including asthma and narcolepsy, but its potent stimulant properties soon made it a favorite among Nazi military leaders, who saw its potential to boost soldier performance and endurance. Speaking of the military, the next invention went down in military history, and it decently deserved its spot there: the V-2 rocket. The Nazis developed a powerful rocket called the V-2.
In September 1944, Germany launched its new wonder weapon for the first time, the V-2,
which was the first long-range ballistic missile in the world. Designed and built by German scientists and engineers, the V-2 was a technological marvel that could travel over 200 miles and reach speeds of up to 4,000 miles per hour. The V-2 was meant to be a game-changer in warfare, allowing the Nazis to attack enemy cities and targets from a distance. The rocket was guided by a complicated system of gyroscopes and engines, and it carried a large explosive warhead that could cause massive destruction. Horton Ho 229. This turbojet engine stealth aircraft developed by the Nazis during World War II was a pioneering achievement in aviation technology, boasting innovative design features that were well ahead of its time. Conceived by brothers Walter and Reimar Horton, the Ho 229 was designed to be a high-speed, long-range bomber, but its most striking feature was its sleek, curved fuselage, which was carefully crafted to reduce radar cross-section and minimize detection by enemy radar systems. Electroboot, the submersible revolution. The Electroboot, a submarine designed by the Nazis. It was the first vessel of its kind to operate primarily submerged, rather than surfacing regularly to recharge its batteries and replenish its air supply. This innovative design, which featured a streamlined hull, advanced propulsion systems, and sophisticated snorkel technology, enabled the Electroboot to remain underwater for extended periods, making it a formidable and stealthy weapon in the Nazi arsenal. Intramedullary rod. The intramedullary rod, a groundbreaking medical innovation developed by German scientist Gerhard Kunter during the Nazi era, revolutionized the treatment of femur fractures, significantly reducing recovery time and improving patient outcomes. Before the introduction of the intramedullary rod, treating femur fractures was a complex and often cumbersome process, involving cumbersome splints and prolonged periods of immobilization, which frequently led to complications and prolonged recovery times. But with the intramedullary rod, Kunter introduced a game-changing solution, where a thin metal rod was inserted directly into the marrow cavity of the femur. This provided internal stabilization and support, allowing patients to mobilize and bear weight much sooner, and thereby accelerating the healing process. World's first fighter jet. The Nazis built the world's first mass-produced fighter jet, called the Messerschmitt Me 262 Schwalbe. This was a big deal because before this, fighter planes were propeller-driven, but the Me 262 had a jet engine, which made it much faster and more powerful. The Me 262 was designed to be a game-changer in air battles, and it was built in large numbers to give the Nazi Air Force an edge over their enemies. The plane was sleek and deadly, with a top speed of over 550 miles per hour, and it was armed with powerful cannons and rockets. 3D filming. The Nazis made important breakthroughs in 3D filming technology, which allowed them to create movies that looked like they were jumping off the screen. Nazi engineers experimented with special cameras and projectors that could capture and display images in 3 dimensions, giving viewers a more immersive experience. They developed techniques like stereoscopy, which involved filming the same scene from slightly different angles and then combining the images to create a 3D effect. The Nazis used this technology to make propaganda films and documentaries that showcased their military power and technological advancements. Nerve agents. The Nazis conducted secret research to create extremely poisonous chemicals, known as nerve agents, as part of their plan to develop new weapons for war. These chemicals, such as tabun, sarin, and soman, were designed to attack the nervous system, causing severe symptoms and often death. The Nazis produced large quantities of these nerve agents and developed ways to deliver them, such as through artillery shells and bombs. Fortunately, the Allies were able to learn about the Nazi nerve agent program before it could be widely used, and they took steps to prepare for the potential threat. Borghild Project. The Nazis had a secret project called the Borghild Project, which was designed to create inflatable dolls for soldiers to use. The idea behind this project was to provide a hygienic alternative to soldiers visiting brothels, which were often linked to the spread of diseases. The dolls were intended to be made of rubber or a similar material and were meant to be inflatable and reusable for intercourse whenever the soldiers wanted. While the next invention might sound simple and low budget compared to most others on our list, it's found in many homes today. Jerry can. The Nazis developed a simple but impressive fuel container called the jerry can, which was designed to safely and efficiently store and transport gasoline and other fuels. The jerry can was made of sturdy metal and had a cleverly designed spout and cap that made it easy to pour fuel without spilling a drop. It was also designed to be rugged and durable, able to withstand rough handling and harsh environments. The jerry can was a game changer for the Nazi military, allowing them to easily transport and store fuel for their vehicles and equipment. The design was so good that it was soon copied by the Allies, and the jerry can is now a widely used military equipment. Chloroquine. The Nazis developed a medicine called chloroquine, which is still used today to prevent and treat malaria. Malaria was a big problem for soldiers fighting in tropical areas, and the Nazis wanted to find a way to protect them. A team of German scientists worked on creating a medicine that could fight the disease, and they came up with chloroquine. The medicine was tested and proved to be very effective in preventing and treating malaria. It was used by Nazi soldiers and later by soldiers from other countries, and it is one of the most widely used medicines for malaria today. Z4 computers. The Nazis developed a machine called the Z4, which is considered to be the world's first commercial digital computer. This innovative device was designed by German engineer Konrad Zuse, who built it to perform complex calculations quickly and accurately. The Z4 used binary code, which is still the basis for modern computer programming, and it could solve problems that would take humans a long time to do by hand. While the Z4 was not widely used during the war, it paved the way for the development of modern computers and is an important milestone in the history of technology. RPGs. The Nazis developed a powerful handheld weapon called the Panzerfaust, which was one of the first rocket-propelled grenades, or RPGs, to be used in battle. The Panzerfaust was a simple, lightweight tube that fired a rocket-powered grenade that could blast through thick armor and destroy tanks. It was designed to be easy to use, even for soldiers who weren't specially trained, and it was effective against even the toughest enemy armor. Volkswagen Beetle. The Nazis commissioned Ferdinand Porsche to design an affordable and reliable car for ordinary German families, which became the iconic Volkswagen Beetle. The idea was to create a people's car, or Volkswagen in German, that was cheap, easy to maintain, and accessible to the average citizen. The Nazis planned to produce the Beetle on a massive scale, with a new factory built specifically for this purpose. The next one almost rhymes with Volkswagen, and the Nazis must have felt like visionaries when they invented it. Volksempfänger, the people's receiver. The Nazis created a special kind of radio called the Volksempfänger, which was designed to be affordable for regular people. This was a big deal because before this, radios were expensive and only rich people could afford them. The Volksempfänger was developed by a Nazi engineer named Otto Griesing, who wanted to make it possible for everyone to listen to the radio and hear important news and messages from the government. The Volksempfänger was a simple, easy-to-use radio that could pick up broadcasts from all over the country, and it was priced so that almost anyone could buy one. The Enigma machine. The Nazis created a secret machine called the Enigma machine, which was made by a German engineer named Arthur Scherbius. This machine was very complicated and was used to send secret messages that only certain people could understand. It looked like a typewriter, but it had lots of wires and wheels inside that scrambled the messages, making them hard to figure out. The Nazis used the Enigma machine to send important messages, like plans for battles and secret information, and they thought it was unbreakable. But some smart people in other countries, like England, were able to figure out how the machine worked and crack the secret codes, which helped them win the war. When construction on the Three Gorges Dam began in 1994, it wasn't just about generating electricity to fuel China's rapid economic growth. It was also meant to tame the mighty Yangtze River, protect millions of people from deadly floods, and serve as a shining symbol of China's technological strength and national pride. But things haven't exactly gone as planned.
The country is seeing heavier rainfall, more intense flooding, and more frequent heat waves to the extent where extreme weather events have been described as the new normal.
These networks of dams have been constructed along its longest river as part of a series of hydropower stations in some of the most remote and inhospitable regions on Earth. These rivers, originating high in the mountains, provide water to 1/5 of the world's population, including the Yangtze River, which is vital to China's economic ambitions. More than a dozen dams are being built along this section, but the narrow canyons pose immense logistical challenges, especially in an earthquake-prone area. But that's not all. The project, which cost a staggering 200 billion yuan, around $28.6 billion, took almost 2 decades to complete and displaced over 1 million people along the Yangtze River. The government assured everyone that the dam would protect communities from a once-in-a-century flood. Yet, its ability to do so has been called into question time and again. Recently, those doubts have come back into the spotlight. The Yangtze Basin has been hit with the heaviest rainfall in nearly 60 years, causing the river and its many tributaries to burst their banks.
As pouring rain continues to soak central and southern China, an expert warns that one of the world's largest dams is at risk of collapse.
The toll has been devastating. More than 158 people have died or gone missing. 3.67 million people have been forced from their homes, and 54.8 million lives have been impacted. The economic losses are just as staggering, totaling 144 billion yuan, $20.5 billion. For all its grand ambitions, the Three Gorges Dam has struggled to live up to the lofty promises made when construction began. The construction efforts are flooding entire Tibetan towns, sparking rare protests in one of China's most tightly controlled regions. Hundreds of Tibetans in Derge County, known as Dege in Mandarin, located within the Gars Tibetan Autonomous Prefecture in Sichuan Province, gathered in front of the county government office to protest. They demanded an end to the construction of a 1.1 million kilowatt hydropower station on the Drichu River. Additionally, they called for the reversal of orders that would force thousands of Tibetans to relocate from Upper Wanto and Shipa villages, as well as 6 significant monasteries, including the 13th century Wanto Monastery, which contains invaluable murals from that era. These villages and monasteries are expected to be submerged once the dam's reservoir is completed. Local Tibetans argue that the hydropower project has disregarded the sacredness of these monasteries and their central role in the culture, religion, and values of Tibetan Buddhists. This project highlights the risks China is taking to transform its economy. The Yangtze River, stretching over 6,300 kilometers, is a true giant of Asia. As the longest river on the continent and the 3rd longest in the world, only the Nile and Amazon surpass it. The Yangtze has played a central role in shaping China's history, economy, and culture. From its origins in the Tibetan Plateau, the river winds its way through China's heart, eventually pouring into the East China Sea at Shanghai. Along its journey, it touches nearly 1/5 of the country's land area, quenching the thirst of millions and supporting vital industries. The Delta region alone fuels almost 20% of China's GDP. Imagine 1/5 of an entire nation's economy depending on one river. But the Yangtze is as dangerous as it is vital, which leads us to the pros and cons of this dam. Pros and cons of the mega dam. Dams have always been powerful symbols of progress. Massive structures that can control rivers, generate electricity, and supply water to millions. So when we talk about megadams, we're taking that concept to a whole new level. These enormous dams can power entire cities, offer flood protection, and help with irrigation.
About 22 billion cubic meters of water. And then it's released in a controlled way through this system of 46 spillway gates.
On the surface, they seem like the ultimate win-win for development and sustainability. But here's the catch. While megadams have incredible potential, they come with some serious risks. Building a dam isn't just about stopping a river. It's about changing ecosystems, potentially displacing entire communities, and sometimes even wiping out cultural landmarks that have stood for centuries. And when these massive projects go wrong, the consequences can be devastating. China, in particular, has embraced megadams in a big way.
China is building a super dam on the Brahmaputra near its border with India, according to a Chinese state media report. Now, the project comes amid heightened tensions between the two countries along the line of actual control.
The Three Gorges Dam, the largest hydropower project in the world, is a perfect example of China's ambition to harness the power of its rivers. The country has made enormous strides in clean energy through hydropower, but it hasn't been without a cost. In some cases, fragile environments are being reshaped, ancient Tibetan sites are at risk of flooding.
The Three Gorges Dam in China has reached peak levels, leaving just 11 meters until the reservoir breaches its maximum level. Officials have tried opening the floodgates to lessen the stress on the dam, but record rainfall this summer has made it a losing battle.
And with China being a seismic hotspot, there's always the looming threat of earthquakes. The real question is, do the benefits of these mega dams outweigh the dangers? It's a debate that's not going away anytime soon. China estimates that the upper stretch of the Yangtze, known as the Jinsha, between Tibet and Sichuan, holds enough hydropower potential to produce 112 gigawatts of electricity, about a quarter of the country's current hydropower capacity. The region is considered the global epicenter of hydropower potential, with a string of rivers rapidly descending from the Tibetan plateau to lower regions. This kinetic energy is being harnessed to help China reach its net zero goals faster, making hydropower a key part of their strategy. But here's the concerning part. Regions with high hydropower potential, typically areas with fast-flowing rivers, mountainous terrain, and significant water volume, often come with a major challenge: geological instability. This means that while the energy potential is huge, the ground beneath these regions is often unstable, making construction risky and difficult. Take, for instance, the Himalayas. This region has enormous hydropower potential thanks to its powerful rivers fed by glaciers and snowmelt. However, it's also one of the most seismically active areas on the planet, sitting right at the convergence of two tectonic plates.
We know the tectonic plates intersect there, so this would be one of the plates on this side and then another one over here, and then all of these fault lines.
This instability increases the risk of landslides, earthquakes, and flooding, which could damage dams or cause catastrophic failures. The proposed construction of megadams in the region has raised concerns about these very risks. Another example is the Sichuan province in China, home to the famous Three Gorges Dam. While the dam generates immense hydropower, Sichuan lies in an earthquake-prone zone. In 2008, a massive earthquake hit the nearby Wenchuan region, killing over 87,000 people. Though the Three Gorges Dam withstood the quake, the event highlighted the very real danger of geological instability in areas rich with hydropower potential. Landslides and tremors continue to be a concern for the region's numerous dams. These examples show that while high hydropower potential can be a huge opportunity, the geological instability of such areas makes building and maintaining dams an extraordinary engineering and safety challenge. The advanced technology required to construct infrastructure in such unstable areas is remarkable, demanding great effort and facing substantial logistical hurdles. The dams in this section of the Jinsha River are especially vulnerable due to tectonic plate intersections, making the area highly active with fault lines and constant movement. The largest dam in this cascade will stand 239 meters tall, surpassing the height of the Hoover Dam in the U.S. building. This dam is particularly challenging because it sits directly on the riverbed, requiring stabilization through the addition of rocks and concrete into the jelly-like base of the river. Landslides and avalanches are common in the surrounding steep mountain terrain, necessitating the construction of large concrete escarpments on the sides of the gorge. Concrete blocks, the size of high-rise buildings, have been installed along the cliffs to reinforce the structure. Known for its violent floods, the river has been responsible for some of the most devastating natural disasters in history. In the 20th century alone, floods claimed around 300,000 lives. One of the most tragic events occurred in 1931, when 145,000 people drowned during a single flood. Just a couple of decades later, in 1954, another flood and the subsequent diseases that followed claimed 30,000 lives. Beyond the staggering loss of life, these floods wreaked havoc on the land, washing away fertile farmland and causing billions of dollars in damage. The Yangtze is both a lifeline and a looming threat, a force of nature that has shaped China's development in more ways than one. To safeguard over 15 million people in Shanghai and the lower Yangtze floodplains, and to control flooding across nearly 15,000 square kilometers of land, the monumental task of constructing the Three Gorges Dam began in 1994. This engineering marvel, built at an estimated cost of $28 to $60 billion, as no one knows the exact figure due to the mix of government and private funding, is almost 200 meters tall and stretches over 2 kilometers across the mighty Yangtze River. It's designed to withstand even a 6.0 magnitude earthquake. The dam created the Three Gorges Reservoir, a massive body of water stretching roughly 600 kilometers upstream, with a capacity of nearly 40 billion cubic meters, about 32 million acre-feet. At the time of its completion, the Three Gorges Dam was the largest hydroelectric power plant in the world, boasting a capacity of over 20,000 megawatts. To put that in perspective, that's more than 20 times the output of the Hoover Dam, equivalent to 18 nuclear power plants, and enough to supply nearly 10% of China's energy needs. Without the dam, generating this amount of electricity with coal would release an additional 100 million tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. On top of that, the dam made the Yangtze more navigable, allowing massive freighters to transport goods deep into China's interior, a big win for trade. Yet despite its incredible benefits, the Three Gorges Dam has been steeped in controversy from day one. The environmental concerns are staggering, from disrupting river ecosystems and threatening endangered species, to worsening waterborne diseases and degrading water quality due to the river's slower flow. The rising reservoir has even triggered landslides and earthquakes, not to mention the forced relocation of over 1 million people. Entire communities were uprooted, and culturally significant sites along the river's banks were submerged. To address pollution fears, an additional $4.8 billion was earmarked during construction to fund new water treatment plants and garbage disposal sites along the river's upstream reaches. Despite these measures, the environmental and social impacts continue to spark debate. The Three Gorges Dam stands as both a symbol of China's ambition and a reminder of the complex trade-offs that come with such massive undertakings. Talking about massive, the dangers it poses to China's rich cultural environment are massive. Danger to religious and cultural heritage. China is a country where history, culture, and spirituality come alive in every corner. Think about the ancient temples, towering pagodas, and sacred monasteries nestled in mountainsides, places that have stood for centuries, where people still gather to pray, meditate, and honor their ancestors. These aren't just tourist spots. They're the beating heart of communities, especially in regions like Tibet, where religion and tradition are woven into the very fabric of life. But as China races to build huge infrastructure projects, like megadams for hydropower, these priceless cultural treasures are in real danger. Imagine a 700-year-old monastery, with murals that have survived revolutions and wars, suddenly facing the threat of being swallowed up by a rising reservoir. It's not just the buildings at risk, it's the identity and history of entire communities. In Tibet, for example, monasteries aren't just places of worship. They are the lifeblood of villages. When one is destroyed, it's like ripping out the soul of the town. But that's not even the most shocking part. The dams are being constructed on unstable ground in one of Asia's most earthquake-prone areas. In 2007 alone, over 100 earthquakes occurred between the Sichuan Basin and the Jinsha River. If an earthquake were to hit the fault line along the Jinsha River, it could severely damage all the dams. The failure of one dam could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction, leading to the collapse of multiple dams, each compounding the disaster. The risks associated with these dams extend far beyond the threat of earthquakes, as they also pose a serious danger to Tibetan heritage sites and ancient communities. The dam will create a massive reservoir that will stretch tens of kilometers up the valley, displacing villages in its path. An official environmental impact report indicates that the Chinese authorities are aware of this. For instance, Beijing expects the Gangar Dam alone to displace nearly 4,000 people and submerge 5 temples. While the report does not specify which religious sites, experts believe that the Wo Monastery, which dates back to the 13th century, will be among those destroyed. Many Tibetan monasteries were lost during the Cultural Revolution, but this one was spared. It houses 700-year-old frescoes and murals on its walls, which will be irreversibly damaged by the rising waters. Leaked footage has shown rare protests from Tibetans attempting to stop the construction of the dam.
China, stop building dams now! China, out of Tibet now! China, out of Tibet now! China, out of Tibet now!
However, China strictly controls Tibetan regions, making it difficult for information to emerge. Since sending troops to Tibet in 1950, Beijing has sought to assimilate ethnic Tibetans and create a unified national identity loyal to the Communist Party. In Tibetan culture, monasteries are far more than places of worship. They are the beating heart of the community, woven into the spiritual, cultural, and social fabric of daily life. Destroying a monastery isn't just knocking down a building, it's erasing centuries of tradition, spirituality, and identity. It's like ripping out the soul of the town, leaving a hollow space where once there was life, meaning, and connection. Yet despite the outcry from these Tibetan communities, the Chinese government has remained silent, offering no official response. Meanwhile, the dams being built along the Jinsha River, a major tributary of the Yangtze, are vital to China's aggressive push for more hydropower. These massive projects are meant to fuel the country's rapid development, but they come with immense risks. Locals often compare these mega dams to the fast food of the energy world. They deliver power quickly, just like fast food satisfies hunger in minutes. But the long-term consequences are much more complex. These dams have the potential to supply much-needed electricity to millions of people, but the costs are high. Entire villages may be submerged, displacing thousands. Ancient cultural landmarks like 700-year-old Tibetan monasteries with priceless murals could be lost forever under rising reservoirs. Think about it. Some of these murals have survived centuries of turmoil, from invasions to revolutions, only to now face the threat of being drowned in the name of progress. And that's just the cultural side of things. There's also the ever-present danger of building these massive dams in a region prone to earthquakes and landslides. If the ground beneath these dams shifts, or if a tremor strikes at the wrong time, the consequences could be catastrophic. A dam failure in one area could trigger a domino effect, leading to further dam collapses downstream. It's like stacking dominoes along a fault line. Any slip-up and the whole system could come crashing down. While China's energy needs are immense, and these dams promise to play a huge role in meeting those demands, the question remains, at what cost? Balancing energy ambitions with cultural preservation and environmental safety is proving to be one of the country's most difficult challenges yet. In case you're wondering why this dam is such a big deal, let's take a look at dams across the world. You'll be surprised at how China's mega dam beats many of them. Which invention shocked you the most? We would love to know in the comments. If you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next updates. Also, click the next video on your screen to enjoy more exciting content.